All right, we're now joined by Dr. Zuhdi Jasser, founder and president of the American Islamic Forum for Democracy. And Dr. Jasser, correct me if I'm wrong, but these schools, these textbooks are funded by UNRWA? Are they provided by the UN Agency for Relief of Palestinian Refugees?
This is exactly the story, is that not only are they radicalized, not only is it a supremacist ideology being taught to these vulnerable kids, but it is being funded by the West. It is being funded by the EU. And I think, I was on the U.S. Commission on Religious Freedom for 4 years. And as the only Muslim voice on that commission, we went to Saudi Arabia 3 times asking them to change their textbooks. And they would say, well, okay, we'll remove this sentence about the Jews. We'll remove this sentence about Christians being infidels. And you can't, it's sort of like taking Mein Kampf and trying to make that moderate. You just can't fix that ideology. The jihadist ideology is supremacist, and your report very well lays out the problem why an imam in Virginia, an imam in California, reading from the same Islamist, anti-Semitic, globalized lens of Islamism is going to have the same radical ideas, and these textbooks show you that the process begins at the age of 6, 9, and 12 at every subject, not just history and religion, but math and physics and science and computers, all in a way that makes these kids look at the world as the land of Islam versus the land of war or the land of infidels, and it needs to be exposed.
Maybe so, but UNRWA was accused of this last year, and they said it's not really true. It's not all textbooks. They have new textbooks now that don't include this, and that a lot of the textbooks with what was pointed out in the report are for older students. Does that satisfy you?
Not at all. I mean, who are they working with? If you talk to real reformists, they're not engaged. The Muslims that are anti-Islamist are marginalized in the leadership in the Palestinian community and the Saudi, Iraqi, Iranian community. I mean, every establishment leadership are radicalized Islamists who are going to produce books, no matter how they try to water them down, that are supremacists. So ultimately, this is why the Palestinians are still radicalized. They're being radicalized not by the story that the Blame Israel crowd says, which is always Israel's fault. No, they're being radicalized by their own leadership. And just like Syria, Libya, Tunisia ultimately had to go through an Arab awakening, the Palestinians need to revolt against Hamas, need to revolt against Fatah, their own tyrannical leadership, their jihadist leadership that's radicalizing their kids. You're not going to fix this ideology until there's an awakening of the people within, so that reformers can begin to have the platforms to write new textbooks. You can't just sort of white out problems in these literature.
Now, clearly, there's some disturbing things in these textbooks, but from the broader question here of funding for these programs that help kids, and the U.S. wanting to cut funding to refugees, to Palestinian refugees, even top Israeli officials are worried that if that happens, it will backfire, because half of Palestinians in Gaza depend on that aid, and if they don't get it, Hamas can use that to incite more violence. What do you say to that?
That's absolute rubbish, nonsense. Why? Look at Iran. We have now instituted sanctions against the regime that was taking billions in order to spread terror in the region, and the sanctions have now fueled the revolution so that people see that the West is on the side of the people and not on the side of the tyrants. And the same way, I laud the Trump administration for shutting down the Washington offices of the Palestinian radicals and moving our capital, doing things that ultimately tell the honest and moderate people in the Palestinian areas that we are with those who want to be with Western values, want to be free of the tyranny of the Islamists and the jihadists, and we'll work with them. But stop the funding. Enough is enough of funding radicals and then blaming Israel for radicalization that's being done by our money from the West and from the UN in the name of jihad rather than in the name of freedom and liberty.
All right, Dr. Zuhdi Jasser, thank you for coming on our show and for giving us your point of view on that.